Hello, everyone. Welcome to Natty News, the nattiest news show in the world. My name is Aaron the Natty, and I'm joined by my co-host Pat, Provincial Champion Woo. Now, I know you all have missed hearing this. I know it's been a long while since Natty News have been back, and me and Pat, from the bottoms of our hearts, we really are sorry. A bunch of stuff got into it. I switched jobs. Pat's been very busy with his schooling and also becoming the provincial champion. So, again, we're really sorry about the delay, but we're very happy to be back. We can make some time. Stuff has slowed down, and we're back with Nine News. And I've already mentioned it twice, Pat, but again, congratulations on being the new provincial champion in weightlifting. What an unbelievable achievement. But before we go talk about that and some other stuff, how have you been?
Yeah, good. I mean, this is catching me right after I feel like the storm has passed a little bit. Because it's been like, how long has it been? Like 6 weeks? It's been a while, right?
Yeah, it's been a little while. Oh man, I don't like to hear that, but it's good to be back.
Yeah, it was crazy, right? I want to hear what kind of has been going on with you after, but for me, beginning of the year, I did the competition to qualify for nationals. I think we podcasted about that, and then soon after that, um, midterms hit the fan. My laptop started exploding. We had all those like computer issues, and then right after midterms is provincials, and then the next week compete in Toronto. Came back, had to select my clinical placements, and and then I had more exams, which I just finished yesterday. But like finally feeling relaxed, and I've learned quite a lot, so I'm really excited to talk about some stuff today.
Dude, I am so excited to hear from you. Like, I truly believe I benefit the most from Natty News because I get like this whole like high level knowledge from your physio stuff, from your training, and like it helps me with my kind of casual training. So it's great to hear. But before we kind of go start talking about our topic for today, I think myself and the listeners want to hear about that championship win. Let's talk about it. Let's hear about that provincial competition. How did it go? How did you find it? And like, man, how does it feel to accomplish such a big goal? Like, you've been only weightlifting for a couple of years, and now to kind of hit these highs, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm less concerned with the fact that I won provincials. I think, um, I had a better day than my competitors, but shout out to my buddy Tony. He could have destroyed me because he's done 120, 150 in practice or something close to the sort. Um, so yeah, but I mean, we'll get after it again at nationals. But the comp itself was really fun. I think I'm finally starting to really just have fun at competitions. Like I'm much less tense, and it was really fun. Like everyone there was just getting really hyped up. People were yelling for the clean and jerks. There was a lot of cheering, and like I would just get hyped up watching everybody lift, and the lifting itself, man, it was not what I expected because I consider myself a much better snatcher than a clean and jerker. But I went out for my first snatch at 112 and I threw it behind me, and then I think my coach wanted me to take it again, Coach Jeremy, but I um, apparently was just feeling some big energy and I wanted more weight. I literally said, I think it's too light. So we did 114 for a second attempt, and it would have been really embarrassing to miss it, but I hit that. And then I've never done 120, and then we were just like, I'm feeling so good and strong. Let's just throw it on the bar. But I threw it behind me again, which is actually a really, it's not a bad indicator because when you miss behind, that means you actually had more than enough power, but it was just a little bit imprecise, um, which is fine. But then clean and jerks, I think most people have seen that 146 kilogram clean and jerk video, which I'm like really proud of. Like, not gonna lie, I watched it like 150 times myself. Because it was a 5 kilo PR ever of what I've done, but also I've only hit 140 kilos or more like literally 3 times ever. and so this was like the fourth time coming above this weight, and was huge. We did it specifically 146 is a weird number, but we wanted to hit a 260 total, which was like that big milestone, and like it felt really good. There was like again like just like getting a lot of cheering and just um, also like like it's not like the heaviest weight anyone's ever lifted, but just having people give me like good encouragement all that after was like super fun, and it's like I think that's what it's about, like it's you don't have to be the strongest person in the world, but when you're in the community, people see you get better, and it's that encouragement that kind of makes this all really fun. It makes me want to keep doing it.
Yeah, no, I remember. I actually watched that 146 clean and jerk a couple times myself, and like, I, I actually think you had even more in you.
In that moment, right? Yeah, I
Yeah,
look,
like
I'm like, man, I don't know, should I have
I'm
done
not gonna
more?
lie, Pat. It looked easy. I was like, wow, Pat is making that fly. Like I've seen you lift in person quite a few times, and like I think I've seen you struggle with lighter weights than that before.
It was really different. Like I felt different right there, and our topic later is gonna relate to this, but I was a different man right in the moment.
No, that was fantastic. And also, I always say this, but in case the listeners are a bit confused, in Olympic weightlifting, they always mention weight in kilograms. So in freedom units, a 260 total, that's like 575 pounds. So like that's an insane amount of weight to throw over your head with a snatch and clean and jerk. So nothing but respect for you, man. That is a huge, huge accomplishment. But something interesting happened. So you did that competition, blew it out the water. But then you competed again pretty in like, was it 2 weeks or 1 week after?
Literally 1 week, Saturday to Saturday.
And so that next competition though, you didn't perform as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'll tell a little bit about that. So that was in Toronto. It was a Commonwealth Games qualifier. Not that I was going to qualify, but let me tell you, the guy who won beat me by 70 kilos.
Oh
But
wow.
but so that was a very unique experience, right? First time traveling for competition, first time on a plane in 2 years, and I felt my like legs like occluding with blood just sitting on the plane for 5 hours. Um, and there were a lot of factors I can reflect on there, being obviously like lack of sleep. We took a red eye, and lack of good nutrition. We had no microwave, no cooking equipment, no fridge. um, so that was kind of rough, right? Like I was kind of just, and I was cutting weight again after, because I have a really hard, I don't actually stay at 81 kilos ever. So I usually just like explode back to 83 like a day after. So cutting again was really rough. And then, so I kind of came into the competition feeling so drained. And like, again, like the week before, Anwar, as you said, 146, could have smashed 150 probably that day, right? But at that comp, I felt so different. I was warming up. I had to like yell at myself and get hyped up. Um, I made my first snatch at 113, and then um, I don't know if you guys have seen these videos, but I went up to 117, basically caught it, but like it was just a little bit forward. Like my coordination was just that little bit off due to fatigue. And then with clean and jerks, I missed my last warm up with 130. Like it got literally this high. It was disastrous. And then we had to open my opener weight. You had to lower my opener weights like by quite a bit. I basically took my last warm up as my first attempt, and and then on my last attempt, I tried 144, and honestly, almost made it again. Walked it overhead, but it was just a little bit off balance. It would have earned me a bronze medal too, so I'm still really sad about it. But yeah, so like very different experiences from week to week, and it has a lot to do with the fatigue management and then kind of not being peaked anymore.
Yeah, and so that kind of ties in for what we want to talk about because if you go to like the layman and you tell them that okay, 1 week I kicked ass and the next week I didn't do as well, it would be like, well, what non-natty stuff were you taking in the first week? Why are you so different? And I think one thing people don't always realize is that with competitions, you really kind of peak yourself for that one moment where year round you're not the same strength. where like that competition is like this peak Pat Wu performance pad just ready to go. And throughout the week and even throughout the year, you're not always going to be at the same level. And in like weightlifting and bodybuilding and powerlifting, they talk about periodization. And that's kind of more of an intermediate and advanced topic. Over here at Natty News, we always talk about linear progression. And that's just because, like, for beginners and for most people, you can get a lot of gains from just linearizing your
Hmm.
program, just going up in weight every week. Like, you can really, really make a lot of gains. But at one point, it becomes difficult to impossible to really progress linearly. And so that's when you have to start doing some periodization. So, and kind of go through like peak cycles and all that good stuff. So, yeah, maybe just kind of start off. Can you just talk a little bit about what is peaking and what is periodization?
Yeah, absolutely. So try to use the most basic terms possible, but periodization is basically the idea that in strength training we have several key qualities that we can develop. So we can develop our endurance, how long we can last. We can develop our hypertrophy, how much muscle we have, our strength, how much force output, or our power, how fast we can produce that power, that force output. And the idea of periodization is that at one point you cannot maximize the development of all these qualities. So you cannot become a marathon champion while becoming a champion weightlifter, probably. And even if you could probably do better at either disciplines if you train them somewhat separately. So periodization is developing cycles or plans that progress through different qualities. So maybe perhaps every 4 weeks we are focusing on one quality, such as we're going to focus on building muscle for 4 weeks and then strength for 4 weeks. And then we get into that peaking. And the peaking is the idea that if you're a competitor, or even if you just have a goal, maybe my goal is to deadlift 400 pounds, not for powerlifting, just for yourself, then you set that goal and you kind of work backwards. We know that we're kind of aiming for that date where we're going to be at peak performance. And when we peak, the things we do are essentially to keep your mind and body as strong as possible while minimizing other fatigue. So things we do is it almost feels like a bit of a deload. We do rather than actually trying to make more gains the week or two before competition. I'm just trying to train decently heavy and do little else. I'm in and out of the gym in 60 minutes, so I don't get too fatigued. In the rest of my life, if I can, I'm trying to, not be overwhelmed by work so I can manage my stress. I'm trying to sleep better. I'm trying to keep my nutrition on point so that at that particular day, I'm at my peak performance. Not 3 days after, not 3 days before. We're trying to peak for that exact moment. Yeah.
Yeah, so some kind of an interesting thing about peaking too, though, is like why can't we keep that peak for long term? So like you were talking about like optimizing your nutrition, sleep, and stuff. So like hypothetically, if I'm just like perfectly dieting, perfectly resting
Hmm.
every day, why is it still though that I can't keep my peak for like a month?
Yeah. There's a lot of debate on that, but I'll give my take, which I think is pretty logical. The first one being that when we're doing strength training for adaptations, we've talked a lot about how that's actually imposing stress in your body, right? So if you're trying to gain muscle, you're tearing muscle fibers down. Trying to gain strength, you're actually frying your CNS so it comes back more reactive and more powerfully. So that contradicts the point of peaking because with peaking, you're almost not trying to make those adaptations anymore at that moment. You're trying not to impose a stress in your body so it can relax a little bit and get back to, and so that it's not being constantly stressed. So that's the first reason. The second reason is that logically, as full time working people, you can't be peaked all the time because uh, athletics for most of us is something that we do outside of our day to day stressors. And a lot of the time when I'm trying to peak, it's honestly like I'm skipping a lecture here and there. I'm cutting down on clients and money here and there. I'm not seeing friends. I'm probably forgetting to do something so I can sleep 8 hours. And it's like you couldn't keep that up year round, or you're gonna be reverse peaking in the rest of your life.
No, I hear that. Yeah, for a lot of us, it's hard to put that full time commitment. So another idea of periodization is kind of like, okay, so you kind of go through these cycles of where you're focused on something and you eventually hit a peak where then you kind of test what you've gained and you go
Yeah.
back into the next periodization. Now, something like before I always was curious about was like, okay, if I'm not competing, why do I need to do that peak week? Why can't I just do a periodization cycle and then jump into the next cycle right away without doing that peak week? Like,
Yeah.
besides competing, is there any actual benefit to like strength or muscle gain from doing periodization? I mean, from peaking.
Um. Yeah. I would say I think it's just a good thing for people to have like specialized goals when they're training, right? We talked a lot about how if you're just in the gym just to be in the gym, then at some point it doesn't become very motivating, right? So everybody has some kind of a goal. Let's assume. Let's say your goal is to do 15 pull-ups, right? It doesn't have to be one rep max. So you'd still like to peak for that, right? There's a lot of ways to peak for it, right? For example, you'll do 6 weeks of muscle building, focusing on your back, and then you'll do strength training where you're aiming for like 10 rep max on pull ups or whatever. And then eventually you'll peak and see how many pull ups you can do, right? For you to just go through and go through, it's the idea of not having a test. You're not seeing how strong you've gotten because when you get a new PR too, what does that do? That allows you to set a new baseline, right? So now my PR is no longer 10 pull ups, it's 15 pull ups. So if we're working at 50% intensity, now there's more volume, right? So this is how you progress by by peaking, setting new PRs that gives you new numbers, and it actually makes all the relative percentages higher too. So I think there's so much value in doing something like that to some
Uh,
extent.
I see. So kind of like the peaking is when you kind of reevaluate your numbers and kind of like then kind of like change up the program a bit and the percentages. Now, Pat, I love the story of Milo, and my boy Milo. For those Nine News legends who've been listening from the beginning, you know the story. But for the new ones, I'll reiterate it. Milo was this great Olympic athlete, and his strength training routine is he would carry two calves up a mountain. So when they were little calves, it was easy to bring them up. When they grew up to be full grown cows and oxen, he was carrying two cows up a mountain, which is like 2,000 pounds. So Milo is the linear progression king. But in reality, that wouldn't have worked. Eventually, it would get too heavy, and he wouldn't be able to carry the cows up the mountain. So why does linear progression not work forever?
Yeah. Um, the the first reason is just when you well pretty much when you do anything to your body there's like a stimulus response adaptation, right? You do something, your body responds and it adapts. Now it's like the first time we drove a car, because I struggle with driving a car, so that's something that's hard for me. The first time you drove a car is like the most hard thing ever, right? It's like holy shit, which way is forward, which way is back, how do you run the steering wheel? But the 20,000th time that you do it, it's much easier and it doesn't even take as much like force or stress or anything. And it's to some extent similar with strength training. If you keep giving the same kind of stimulus, eventually your body gets used to it, and you do have to divert that a little bit. The second reason is that the Milo kind of story was focused on the idea of just improving like strength. Like it just got heavier and heavier, right? Now he wasn't really doing like hypertrophy or muscle building training. So what he's getting is better like neuromuscular connection, like basically better uh, mind muscle connection, which allows the muscle you have to fire faster. But at some point, if you only have so much muscle, you can't really like gain any more strength. So what's another way to do it? We can either gain more muscle, or we can focus on getting those muscles firing really really fast, like power training, right? So that's where Milo at some point, if he got stuck, he might be inclined to do some medium to high rep back extensions, for 6 to 8 weeks, come back with a bigger back, bigger wider back, and he's gonna be able to do more. I think, yeah.
Dude, my boy Milo had that barnyard dirt back. My boy, he was thick.
Yeah.
Oh man, well, but dude, that makes a lot of sense because you're right. It is we can't get to that limit. So what do we do to change it? And I guess that's the idea of it. Um, Actually, something I want to be curious about. So as listeners know, I'm a big fan of the Juggernaut AI program, And over there, they do a periodization. And recently, they started adding in bridge programs. And so, a bridge program is when, if your goal is bodybuilding or powerlifting or Olympic weightlifting, it's kind of like for a few weeks, you kind of do something not related to that. So, like, you might be doing some strongman training, or you might be doing some sport specific training, or you might just be doing like some explosive work, or just stuff that's not related to like the core weightlifting, bodybuilding, powerlifting type of routines you're used to. So, what's kind of like the value in doing these bridge programs? Is muscle confusion a real thing? Were the bros right the whole time?
Uh, I don't like the term muscle confusion because I don't think the muscles get like confused, but but your muscles do perhaps respond differently to different stressors and different lines of stress, right? Um, so a good rationale for having a bridge week or two bridge weeks is that it gives that novel stimulus on your body, which can uh, promote positive adaptations that you don't see before. But I think a more common reason people have bridge weeks is honestly we can get really bored and burnt out by doing like if you want to powerlift, right, you do squat, bench, deadlift every damn day for the rest of your life, and you really need it. Like it's not like it doesn't make you a wuss to do a transition week and do something else fun because um, that lets you deload your focus, have some fun in the gym, and then eventually like, oh crap, I miss squat benching and deadlifting. Then when you come back, you're much more motivated, you put more effort in, and you've also had a chance to rest your body from those movement patterns, right? It's stimulus response adaptation. You need to, at some point, you have to rest in order for those gains to really kind of set in and let your body recover. So it's almost kind of similar to the idea of a deload week, right? But rather than just doing the same stuff but lower intensity, you do something else that's fun. So you don't just rest your body, but also your mind a bit.
Well, Pat, in my current bridge program, I'm doing 5 second tempo squats. So that's 5 seconds down and then explode up. And those are painful. Those tempo squats, there's nothing fun about them. I'm waiting for to go back to normal regular squats.
There you go. There's something else. that's
Yeah,
that's the other way.
I cannot wait to be done with these damn tempo squats.
Oh man, 5 seconds? That's awful, dude.
Oh, dude, it's painful. But I mean, again, I mean, you know what? You're gonna make some gains from that. I do want to kind of cover the muscle confusion. Um, because I mean, back when you and I started lifting, that was a very common thing people would say is if you plateaued, you gotta confuse the muscle and try something
Yeah.
else. They would say something like, "Oh, if you've been doing barbell bench and you can't get over like 2 plates, go to dumbbells for a couple months and then you'll blast through 2 plates on your bench because you're confusing the muscle." And it's weird because that is kind of like an idea of doing like maybe a little break as you were mentioning and coming back to it and you could be a little more refreshed and ready to go, but it's also like I guess the science because yeah, you don't really confuse the muscle. The muscle's not like, oh, we're doing dumbbells, this is new. It's like they don't really know what exercise you're doing for a stimulus. So maybe comment a bit about muscle confusion and like how you can benefit from it but for not the reasons people think.
Yeah. That's a lot of stuff in the fitness industry. A lot of it actually does do what it says, but just not the way people think. Um, so muscle confusion. Yeah. The way I see it is like let's say like we both did have done conventional deadlifts to some extent for like many years, right? So that is a motor pattern or a skill that your body has done so many times. So therefore, just like anything else in life, we are pretty efficient at it, right? So, and we're being the better person at engineering physics here. But if you're very efficient at it, that means you expend less energy to do it, and it's less challenging relative to a similar task that you're not good at. So then, if we switch that up and do a dumbbell deficit Romanian deadlift with like a stagger with 1 foot behind you. Now that's a completely novel stimulus. You're not efficient at it, meaning that you're going to expend a lot of energy and skill, and your muscles have to work super hard to do it. So then that can provide a better stimulus, perhaps even with less load. So that's kind of the way I see it when you change up the exercise is you're taking a movement that you're less efficient at. And in strength training, less efficient can be a good thing because you want that disadvantage so that you can drive stimulus and adaptation.
Yeah, definitely. I can hear it. And I think though a big thing of it is also the mental part. Like for me, if you're stuck on like let's say bench press and you can't get past a certain plateau, switching over to dumbbells and being able to progress again just gives you like a good mental boom in your mindset that like
Huge.
okay, I'm getting better. So like if you were like benching 2 plates and you dumbbell press like 80s and then you can do 90s, in your mind, I'm getting better now. I'm getting stronger. And then when you
Yeah.
go back to barbell bench, you kind of bring back that confidence. Like, I feel like though that's a big part of just taking a break can be a
Yeah.
big benefit.
Yeah. Or like, or a better way to say it, you're taking a break without actually taking a break.
Mm,
Uh, and that works really well rather than some people go really hard, they burn out, and they just like stop doing it for like 3 months, right? So what we're
yeah.
doing there is infinitely so much better.
No, love to hear it. And no, it is still so funny about how so much bro science is so close to real science. They're
Yeah,
almost there.
yeah,
But
which is
then
not bad. That's a good thing. It's good that it's at least like the moral of the story is correct.
yeah, no, exactly. Okay, so for our listeners, someone who's interested in maybe doing some periodization, how would you start? Like, how would you kind of create a routine based off periodization instead of linear progression, which what most people focus on?
Right. Um, you know, yeah, a lot of it is done for athletes, so the challenging bit is adapting it for a regular person. But I would start with a very simple needs analysis. You don't need a chart or anything, but just think about like in your lifting, let's say your goal is a bigger snatch or something, right? What is your biggest weakness? Is it the fact that you're too skinny, like you just don't have enough muscle? Is it that you feel like, oh, maybe like my strength isn't very good, my legs are not strong, or my arms are not strong? Is it power? Are you just slow? Do you just not move fast? Is it mobility? Are you just too stiff, right? So, or is it a personal problem? Is it endurance? Are you so out of shape that you can't even get your sets done without resting 4 minutes sometimes? So it's taking a moment to think about that, and then you always want to start with the kind of the most endurancey type quality. So you would always start with endurance before hypertrophy, before strength, before power. So once you evaluated that, you might think, okay, so it might be good to do a 3 to 4 week hypertrophy phase, meaning we do higher reps, we focus on mind muscle connection and shorter rest time, right? And then you might go on to strength focus, uh, lower reps, higher amount of rest time, and higher intensity, and then kind of progressing back to your power movements with your snatches and whatnot, and then seeing how you improve. But one of the challenging things while you do that is, let's say your goal is to snatch or your goal is to deadlift. You don't just take it away when you're doing the hypertrophy. You keep it there, but at a smaller amount. It's only like 10 to 20% of your training, and over time throughout your cycle, the percentage of that specific skill you want increases until you peak. And when you peak, it's like 60 to 70% of your training. So you're kind of shifting focuses over time.
Okay, and so when you're mentioning doing these phases, so you do like an endurance training for like about a month, and then maybe then get into strength for about a month, and power for about a month.
Yeah, it's all very rough, and in actual practice it can vary in time, right? Maybe it's just 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But I think the key idea is having that clear goal in mind can already make a difference, because I know a lot of people are trying to, it's a very common thing where people are trying to run like 5 times a week while they're like, oh, I really want to increase my back squat, but I'm also going to run 5 times a week and do all this like other extra work. And I think like that's the big picture. You don't have to periodize perfectly, but having that clear goal, right? If you want to run, that's okay, but maybe do your running and like don't expect your squat to go up yet. Keep the squats there, it's moderate, and then when you have a phase where you can decrease the running, then you're gonna be able to progress so much more.
Mhm. Now, see, I think one of the things about linear progression is it's pretty simple, but
Yeah.
periodization it does sound a little more complicated. would you recommend any resources for someone who might want to come up with a better periodization schedule, what they could look at?
Books that regular people can read. Let's see.
Or even like maybe
Um,
like even if there's like a YouTube video that goes really in depth with it, or like anything you'd recommend.
I think Juggernaut has some good resource, like Juggernaut training systems, like this the same people who made your training. I think there's stuff on there about like peaking, periodization, and things like that. Um, but yeah, there's not a great lot of great accessible resources because there's a lot of big words. Like I try to use the smaller words today, but people be using words like uh, accumulation phase, realization phase, all sorts of like big crazy words. So Juggernaut I think is pretty good. Natty News is another good resource.
Yeah, I gotta say, and we are not sponsored whatsoever by Juggernaut. It would be great if we were. I would love it, but we have no affiliation. But I gotta say, Juggernaut AI does do a very good job of explaining periodization and how to meet your goals with it. So, for those who are curious about it, I would highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think periodization, just like getting outside of fitness a little bit, it's actually a very like just interesting concept to think about, even from like a life type of deal. In that it's like really hard to prioritize everything exactly the same at all times. Like and where you're going through a transition phase, new job, new location coming up. So I'm gonna imagine that right now lifting cannot be your first priority, and like likewise the same, like the podcast couldn't be our first priority, and I think that's also like okay, like it's something that happened, right? And it's kind of about shifting focuses. Like as one thing goes up, just like recognizing that another quality has to go down a bit, and then I think when we can do that, we can have a lot more clarity with our goals and what we're trying to achieve.
You know, Pat, it is so funny how much lifting does affect my life. Not only that gaining muscle and stuff, but just like how I schedule stuff. Because as we were mentioning early on, while we were busy and we had to take a bit of a hiatus, I was searching for a new job, and a big part of the job is preparing for interviews, getting ready for it, and
Yeah,
studying. And I would literally schedule my studying like how I would do my training to peak, where it's like I spend a
dude,
few
same.
days spending like a couple evenings, really hammering out, reviewing all my old like engineering stuff, as really getting my mindset ready. And then like the day or two before the interview, I kind of take it easy just to relax, to come in clear minded, like doing a bit of a
There you go.
deload before like my peak. Like so it's really funny about how analogous these concepts are to your everyday life, because you're right. If you have a goal in your career or personal life, one of the smart ways to do it is kind of periodize it, kind of focus on one thing a lot, and maybe put other things in the back burners and cycle through it. And yeah, it's so funny how analogous it is to all of this.
Man, that's like really true, and I actually do the same thing when I study, and it's like very periodized. Like I start off with like general adaptations, right? It's like if I'm learning about I don't know, like neuroanatomy, it's like okay, let's just like read the notes, just like get a feel of it, right? And then later on, it might be like testing myself. It's like getting closer to what the test environment is like, right? And then like if it's an interview, if it's an oral exam, then closer to the exam, I gotta do specific practice. And at the very end, I gotta rest. I know I have to get a good night's sleep, be recovered mentally, so my memory's good. So it's like, yeah, it's we're literally using this stuff all day long.
No, completely, completely. Um, I think on the next question too, though, is when should someone make the switch from linear progression to a periodization thing? Because I think we can both agree that if you're kind of starting off, linear progression probably still is the best way to kind of like make a lot of gains quickly.
Absolutely. The simple answer is when you stop making progress at a certain point. And I think there's no need to overthink it. Like people will probably know when that happens when you go 6 to 8 to 12 weeks and the old 5 pounds in the bar a week doesn't work anymore. And then the second factor is like when you just start to feel kind of bored of it. Like I think part of periodization and why it works is there's variation. You change up the exercises, the rep scheme, the rest, and it feels like something new. I know I personally get kind of excited when I get through a training block. I'm like, okay, what's coach gonna pump out for me? Like, it might literally be as small as like snatch from the ground versus snatch deadlift plus snatch. But I'm like, that's still not the exact same thing. And there's something novel and exciting. And if you're exciting and motivated about your training, your chances of success and of yourself giving your best effort is also much better.
That makes a lot of sense. Um, Another kind of question I have too, though, is for a lot of us casual lifters, sometimes life gets in the way, and this has happened
Yeah.
to me before too, where you kind of screw up and you miss some training days in the middle of a periodization cycle. Like, I always wonder, what should you do in that situation? Should you restart from the beginning of the cycle, or should you just start where you left off? So let's say you were in the middle of like a workout, a cycle, and then in maybe week 2 of 5, you
Hmm.
missed it completely. Just too much stuff happened.
Yeah.
Should you start back up at week 3, or should you go back to week 1?
Yeah. That's something I've actually thought of. That's really good. The way I usually do this is I don't usually take I don't take deload weeks. I don't take planned deload weeks
Hmm.
ever basically. But because I know that like literally shit happens and those become deload weeks. And when you think about it like that, then it helps you kind of to make peace with it and not be too annoyed by it, right? Like if I finals week, boom, that week is a wash. And honestly, if I was on week 2 before, I'll just take week 3 the week after. Or if I'm feeling a little conservative, maybe repeat week 2. But uh, we know in the science that 1 week is not enough to significantly lose any adaptations. So you're definitely good to go. So I would just keep going forward. Don't get frustrated about it. Acknowledge that it's a part of it, and then just move on to next week.
Yeah, I think that's also what Chad Wesley, the Juggernaut founder, was also saying. Because in like the Facebook group, people were mentioning that they're on vacation for a week or two, and what should they do? And he was saying just continue with the next week.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes that rest you come back stronger. I've heard so many people take a random rest week and just PR after. I'm not like suggesting you do that, but like it happens.
And you were mentioning the deloads too, and about how you don't use it. And so a deload is kind of like, it's kind of a bit of a transitionary break period where after you peak, you're supposed to take a deload just so your body can recover, you can mentally recover, and
Yep.
you can get back into training. And deloads are normally just using like 30-50% of your training weight, just kind of going in there, getting some reps in, but not really fatiguing yourself. And so why do you choose not to do a planned deload?
Yeah. Okay, so correction, I do take a deload the week after competition, but
Hmm.
I don't take it like after because I know some people do like a. It's very common to see like 3 weeks on, 1 week off, like 1 week a deload every 3 weeks, and I've seen I've seen clients work with trainers where they're coming in and they're like they're feeling. I'm like, okay, I'm like, how do you feel, Rev? And they're like, I feel pretty good. And then they look at their program that their coach gave them, and it's a deload week. They're like, and they you can see the disappointment in their face because they're fine, like they don't need it. And especially I think with recreational trainees and just like regular people who are going to the gym, a lot of the times you might not be crushing yourself so hard that you need that within 3 weeks. And it can often just be a better idea to keep going, and inevitably we're all busy people. You're gonna have some big project deadline or you're moving houses or whatever happens. Just take it there, and then it's like because then you get more time to shift your focus to on whatever's at hand, um, and you actually get that deload when you need it. I feel like taking it when you need it is really good.
No, love to hear that. And yeah, I agree with you. I sometimes feel like I don't deserve the deload, where it's like, have I really worked hard enough to take a week off?
Yeah, yeah. And if you have to think about it a lot and you're like, I feel pretty good, I could go up today. I
Yeah.
don't know, like my personal opinion is like I you probably don't need it yet.
Yeah, I've been kind of using more deload times just to do some like pure bodybuilding workouts. Like it's kind
Hmm.
of like on my deload days, I do like 10 sets of side raises just so I can get those non-natty looking shoulders. I mean, I don't know how much it really does, but it kind of gives me something to focus on.
Yep, yeah, that's fine. Side raises is Natty New's favorite exercise.
Dude, once we had that episode when you were telling me about how the regular like shoulder press, military press doesn't work much of your side delts, and that's the key to getting round shoulders. I've been doing so many side raises.
Dude, it's key. You gotta be specific.
Yeah, dude, man. Rich Piana, the late great Rich Piana was right. Side raises are the king of shoulder movements.
Not completely wrong. You can argue it honestly.
Dude, those videos of him doing 80s on side raises.
That's more than we press. Oh my goodness.
Dude, it's crazy. And like I'm not even like of course he's using some momentum, but it's still like a lot of just side
Yeah,
delts on it. It's crazy how strong he was at that movement.
dude. Yeah,
Dude,
man. I can't even do that with two arms.
I don't know
Probably
if
couldn't
this
swing it up.
I don't know if they do this anymore with the strongman competitions, but if you watch like the old school ones, they used to have a competition where they'd hold a weight and just have it like with the front delts, just holding it in front of you.
Oh yeah,
And like they would do it for time. So it'd be something like 90 pounds just held in front of you, and they'd
yeah.
hold it for like a minute, which is mind blowing. I always wanted them to do the same with a side raise, where it's like, how long could you hold like a 30-pound side raise?
Has there hasn't been one like that?
No, I don't think specifically with side raise though, because like
Oh,
they've
okay.
yeah, and like you could do like straight arm or something. Because I'd be very curious, because I think strong men have the strongest shoulders of any athlete.
Yeah, and even they wouldn't be doing any like what do you think they could do? I'm thinking for time, like 40 pounds would be a lot of weight. Like I know strongmen are strong, but that's a lot of weight even for that.
Well, dude, like if you think about it, if you ever go to the gym, and even our listeners, try holding 10 pounds with straight arms to your side. Like, I don't think I could do more than like a few seconds.
Okay, Amor, you can do more than a few seconds, man.
I don't know. Look, dude, straight arm like that, like it's, I think like 10, 15 seconds would be like max for me.
Yeah, like definitely wouldn't make it to a minute. Like even just holding your arms here for a long time, it's like pretty hard.
Yeah, and so like, I don't know, man. I think 30 pounds for like these strongmen, I would say 30 seconds.
Yeah, yeah, and it's crazy. And these guys can lift like 500 pounds over their head
Yeah, it's
straight.
crazy.
Yep.
Dude, the side raise should be an Olympic event.
Yeah, yeah. Olympic side raising. That's what they're gonna do when the snatch and clean jerk get kicked out. They come back with Olympic side raising and what else? I don't know. And bicep curling.
Well, dude, there's already like some powerlifting competitions that do like strict curl comp. I remember Larry Wheels, he
Oh
did a
yeah.
competition in it. So like, I could imagine we do like isolation competitions. Like, I am the world's strongest calf raiser.
That's only one step away from world's strongest shield carry.
Do not disrespect my boy Nick Cannon.
Yeah.
Um, all right, Pat. We're kind of coming up to a good time, but want to make sure anything else you want to let the listeners know about periodization, peaking, and anything else we kind of discussed today.
I think to summarize, you actually gave a really good anecdote how like not everybody knows how to periodize in lifting, but everyone kind of we all kind of do it in our lives already. Where if we have a big goal or objective or job interview, so you always start with general tasks. Like what are the qualities that are important to that task, and what are we bad at? What are the key performance indicators, and what are we not good at? We start by working on those, right, and then we progress over time to more specific tasks, right? So if it's a job interview, you get your friends to practice with you. If it's trying to max out a weight, then you get to closer and closer to max out. You get to lower reps, higher weight over time. And then before the big event, you gotta peak. And peaking is literally just getting your mind and body right. And that's all the things we harp on all the time: your sleep, your nutrition, decreasing your stress however possible. And before peaking time, the key point is you're not trying to make gains anymore. You're trying to let your body recover and really it's kind of like tea. You're kind of letting it steep so that you can really come in on that day that you're trying to peak for whatever you are, and you are feeling different that day, and you have that energy to like do something you've never done before. And that's periodization in a nutshell.
Man, love to hear it. Well, First and foremost, Pat, it's been great to be able to make some time. We're definitely going to be back on Natty News. Our lives have slowed down, so you're going to hear a lot more from us. Thank you to our listeners for being back and listening to this episode. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, hope you all are continuing to make those natty gains. Natty News out.
Natty News out.